Hello, everybody, and welcome to a new thing brought to you by the Global Business Roundtable. We hope that you'll join us and truly be blessed with the message that we have to impart to you today. My name is Sindy Mabe, and I'm the trustee for the Global Fund for Jesus. And joining us for today's discussion, which will be SMME, the key to unlocking and driving economic growth in Africa. And we'll start to my right-hand side, gentlemen first this time around. And if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, Kgosi Musi, who is the head of procurement for BME, a division of Omnia.
Hi, my name is Kgosi. I've been a procurement manager or head of procurement for the last 15 years. I've traveled the world, been around Africa quite a lot. Very passionate about SMMEs. And yeah, that's a little bit on me.
Yeah, and your role in GBR, in Global Business Roundtable?
My role in GBR is that I have a family member here. I have a family member, his name is Rasekoala. He invited me to be here. It's my second time being involved with GBR. Last year I was a speaker in the youth program. So this year he invited me to come be part of the round table.
Rasekoala is a true disciple, making fishers of men. And we have Lindi Mataboge rather, program manager for the Center of Entrepreneurship at Wits Business School and director for Line Empower Services. Lindi, if you'll just introduce yourself and your role in GBR.
Thank you for having me here. My name is Lindi Mataboge, as they mentioned, and I'm very passionate about education, starting from mentoring, coaching, and facilitation. And yes, I'm glad to be here and to add value.
Welcome. And Your Excellency Dudu, if you'll introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Dudu Manuga. I'm from Gombe State in the northeast of Nigeria. I'm the Director General of the Gombe Enterprise Development and Promotion Agency. And also, I lead the Women of Character in our local chapter in Gombe. I'm also a politician. Thank you.
Welcome. And Your Excellency Millie.
Good afternoon, Your Excellencies. Thank you for inviting me here. My name is Millie Rasekoala. You may be wondering why I sound the way I do. I was born in Ghana, raised in the UK, and I'm South African by choice.
You're most welcome. Yeah, because the geopolitical boundaries have actually essentially diminished. We've all become a global village in a sense. But I'm just going to throw out this question in terms of what is an SMME. We hear about entrepreneurship. Everybody has got a CK these days in the South African context. But what is an SMME? Any takers? So we say it's small, medium enterprise, but what does it entail? What are the criteria or the characteristics of an SMME?
Okay, I'll take that. I believe that an SMME, it's one person who saw an opportunity and decide to take a risk by taking, it can be by taking her savings and starting a small business, but making sure that it's more sustainable and they're able to actually sustain where they are with what they've got.
Yeah. And by sustainability, we mean that there has to be progression in your growth. So you can't be a micro business or too long or a small business. Somehow you need to have the building blocks and the fundamentals to help you grow. How do we make that leap from being a subsistence, smaller nyana, one-man band to making a meaningful contribution?
Before I answer that, I would just like to add a little on what maybe a description of SMMEs. In Nigeria, we call them MSMEs. So that's why I'm trying to get used to the SMME. In Nigeria, they are categorized based on the number of people that are in the enterprise and also the asset base of the enterprise. For micro enterprises, there are less than 10 people that are employed, that are working there. For small enterprises, between 10 to 49. Then for medium enterprises, from 50 to 199 people. And also the assets for micro enterprises, less than 5 million naira. So you can convert it in whatever currency. That's how it works for us in Nigeria. Mm-hmm. And for small enterprises, we have from 5 million to 49 million naira. And then for medium scale enterprises in Nigeria, they are from 50 million to 499 million naira. So anything from 500 million naira upwards, those are the large-scale enterprises.
Okay,
so
let's
that's how
see.
we categorize them in
Sorry,
Nigeria.
Excellence. Let's see by a show of hands how many businesses here are just under the 500, was it 5 million naira threshold or benchmark? 500 million in the audience? Anybody making 5 million above? There's a hand there, a gentleman. So it's encouraging to see that even within our midst, we do have those large-scale businesses. How do the rest of us, in our aspirations to be good stewards, to take dominion and opportunity of that God has presented for us as believers, to be successful and sustainable? I'll start with you, Mus.
I think it takes a certain kind of characteristics. One has to be resilient and have self-belief in the idea or the opportunity that you see in the market to go after it.
Yeah, but more often, you have the comfort of keeping a job and having a business on the side as well. Is that why we're seeing less and less entrepreneurs succeed in the business space? Any takers?
Yeah, the problem is that you can't have it both. And most of the time, the reason why we've got so high failure in terms of SMME or rather entrepreneurship is because people want to juggle so many things at once. And at the end, one, which is the major one, actually fails. And you're looking at these people who are contributing almost 45% of the GEP, but only 37% of them, they actually fail within 10 years.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
there's
let's
something
just
not right.
ventilate the contribution that SMEs make or play in the economy and the world generally, because the over-reliance on big business, they tend to be shedding more jobs than creating new industries. How do we define the contribution SMEs make in the economy?
Yeah. So my take on it is that indeed, as globally, jobs are becoming more and more scarce. People are becoming more entrepreneurial. Some of it might not necessarily be intentional. It may be circumstantial. And the reality is that people are striving to put food on the table. And from there, the entrepreneurial flair may start. So it's sometimes not just a thing of people getting up and saying, I want to start a business, but they may find themselves in a situation where they have to create and produce for themselves in order to put food on the table for themselves and their families. Yeah.
I'm sure we can all share notes of being retrenched or losing a job, being fired. Ain't no shame in it. I mean, it's just like the life evolution, I suppose, that we all go through. But beyond the subsistence or survival of starting a business, is there a healthy enough appetite of calculated risk takers to go into innovation, to go into industries that haven't been tried and tested before, in your view? Kgosi?
There is. I just want to go back to add to Mam's answer there. There's another leg of or a new trend that's coming up in terms of entrepreneurship where people are choosing a healthy or a balanced lifestyle, end up becoming entrepreneurs. Right? They're not forced by retrenchment and so whatever, but they choose to lead a healthy lifestyle. So what we're seeing in the US that they're calculating that in the next 5 years, at least 15% to 20% of their workforce will be what they call freelancers. People that have left work just become entrepreneurs. So there is that growing trend. Coming back to your question, Cindy, sorry, can you just repeat?
The different industries, because they
Yeah.
tend to be over-reliance on one particular trade.
I think what we've seen in the past is that people have sort of broken away from your normal service type of industries and starting to venture into the industrial side of things. We've seen increase in manufacturers. We've seen increase in people that are going into agriculture from entrepreneurial perspective. So we've left the service type of industries and ventured into new. Technology is another one that's growing at a rapid rate at the entrepreneurial level.
Mm. And the challenges, but the not having the means of production, capital, etc. If you'll just talk us through that, Millie.
I just want to give you a case study. We have a young man that we've been mentoring in our company, and he's starting a farming business. Basically, he's starting farming, and he has absolutely nothing. And most of the time we sit and we say, we don't have the money, we can't do this, we can't do that. And one day, as we sat in the office, and we were all feeling very defeated, because there was the thing was, okay, he doesn't have the land, he doesn't know where he's going to get the money to get resources, etc., etc. And suddenly I had this brain wave, and I said, well, what about looking at potentially NGOs that can provide some of those resources that you need? And suddenly we all got excited. He managed to find a school with land, and they'd given him some of the land. In exchange, his rental is going to be paid through him teaching some of the children in the school farming. Then we managed to get an NGO to give him seeds. And then we got him, I think, Department of Social Welfare gave him, the plowing tools to plow. And suddenly he's planted, and his biggest challenge right now is that the birds are attacking the crops.
He's got a good problem.
Yes, and that is an easy challenge to resolve. But that's just one of the case studies of, people wanting to start something, but they have nothing. And how do you get there? What are the creative ways in which you can access those resources and be able to, achieve your goals? So those are some of the things that we are seeing out there and working with people to address.
Yeah, and just very briefly, the opportunities, though, in being an SMME.
Okay, so when I ventured out of work, I planned it. I had an exit strategy. I didn't want to be working for a company and then have one foot in and one foot out. And so I sat down with my husband, and we actually planned my exit and determined what I was going to do. And it gave me a sense of freedom. So for me, that's one of the advantages. That's one of the benefits of actually deciding to self-actualize. That's what I call it. And that's what makes it exciting. It's just one of them. And I think my colleagues here will share other benefits as well. I don't want to hog everything.
No, certainly. I mean, and time is a commodity that none of us can really replace or afford to waste. Now, looking at the qualifications, the skill set that you need to have as an SMME or even a business person, I suppose one would be self-mastery. But what else are we talking about when you look into getting into business?
Okay. One thing that we need to bear in mind is that, when you talk about entrepreneurship, it's an art. It's creative art. It's not something that you put somebody in class and be able to say, this is what you need to do, and they go out there and do. It's something that needs an ecosystem approach. Ecosystem approach, we're talking about a program that can drive how you actually teaching them. Secondly, they need mentoring and coaching. They need something that is applied. I call it pracademic, because this person needs to get out of there and be able to apply something immediately. So you cannot just have a once-off. I believe in something called, you customize things for a certain specific sector. You cannot do a generic program and saying this is for all the entrepreneurs. It does not work. So it's important that whenever the programs and qualifications are done, they are done with a certain skill or a certain level of alignment for a certain specific sector. Yeah. Like, for instance, if you do a program for hairdressers, you cannot teach them how to, for instance, how to go out there and sell, but you can teach them, customer services. So everything needs to be customized according to the sector that you need to be doing. And I believe that if all the people who are actually doing skill development start looking at that as a creative space and not a space where you just give theory and say, go out there and do your business.
Yeah, I was looking at it from a different perspective, that if we're talking about SMMEs driving economic growth in the future or in the continent, I believe that the skills development, the training, the entrepreneurial development should start even from school, because there is a mindset that needs to change, especially coming from a West African background. Okay, I have a son who is incredibly talented with football. He is really talented. But when we talk to family members, the first thing they say is, and what about school? And so there is no direction towards your passion and nurturing it to create something for yourself. And I think that is part of entrepreneurship. So it comes to the thing of creativity, but with the talent and nurturing the two together in order to create something that is sustainable for the individual. It isn't all about education, but education is important, because if you're a business person and you can't analyze and read a contract and understand it, you've got problems. You could be cheated. But on the other hand, your raw talent has to also account for something. So I believe it's a combination of the two. Yeah.
And in addition to that, I would like to say that apart from business-specific skills, there's also the need for managerial skills for everybody who is an entrepreneur. What I have noticed, especially in northern Nigeria, is that a lot of those in the micro and small businesses, they have problems of bookkeeping. They don't do proper bookkeeping, and that's what affects their business, because they cannot separate private money and business money. And in the end, when they want to marry, they take the money from the business and the business crashes. So those are also some of the skills that are needed for a successful business enterprise.
So you don't pay yourself 100% before you've paid your operational expenses and tithes, etc. Yeah, but what's wrong with the education system? I mean, if we're growing up, you are told once you finish school, you have your matric, the world is your oyster, and the reality is that you're working yourself into perpetual debt, and you're not necessarily being successful. What is wrong with the education system as it stands, Lindi?
You know, our education system is actually somehow it's failing us, because most of the time they don't recognize the vocational part of our young people. Most of them, they are very good in their hands-on, but they are not actually, the degree, doing the degree. And if you check again, it's only 5% of the people who actually pass their graduate. But now what happened to the 95% of those people? They could be actually not being entrepreneurs, but they could act entrepreneurially in whatever aspect of their life. So it's doesn't actually need education to do that, but you can just ignite what they've got already. It can work on that.
But the biblical principles as well, and your God-given talents and gifts, where I think it's in 1 Peter, where it talks about use these to serve one another. So if you are a good artisan, you're a carpenter, almost like the barter system, you can live happily and still be prosperous in that aspect. But in the capitalistic, worldly way, secular, you're driven to be, a number cruncher, to be a job seeker and not necessarily independent.
But isn't that what we've created as society? Maybe that's what we need to change as society. That don't look at this whole thing as you are number cruncher driven, but look at it as we are connected. I mean, you've talked about having somebody to help you if you don't have a certain skill. How about when you start as an entrepreneur, you know that you don't have business planning skills, you look for somebody that can partner you, or you outsource that. That way you can focus on the real goal that you have for your business. I mean, for me, that's one way that we can teach our kids and entrepreneurs out there to survive.
And in that line, I want to say that about 3 years ago in Nigeria, a policy came out, and now entrepreneurship is being taught in secondary schools, and every tertiary institution in Nigeria has an entrepreneurship center. And it's compulsory for every student going through tertiary institutions in Nigeria to go through that from 100 level till they graduate. It's compulsory from secondary school to tertiary institutions. So it's the new thing now going on in Nigeria. And also there is a compulsory 1-year national youth service that is done after one graduates. Also, there's a compulsory skill acquisition and entrepreneurship training that is going on there as well. So I think for Nigeria, we are starting, and I hope other countries will also see the need to start that early from secondary school to teach our young kids entrepreneurship. I have a son who is 17 years old. He's writing his final exams right now for secondary school. And he said, Mom, school is my plan B. He said, it's my plan B.
Not something to fall back on. Yeah?
Yes, he said, I will go to school, but that's for plan B. He said, my plan A is I'm going to be a movie producer. He writes songs. He has produced about 4 songs right now. He said, even singing and dancing, which he loves to do, he said, that's plan C. He said, my plan A is to be a movie producer. Plan B is education. So, already his mindset has changed. He's not looking at going and working for somebody, sit in a big office, and on a big table, chair, that kind of thing. So kids now, their mindset has changed. They're not out waiting to go and work for somebody. Everybody's wanting to go out of school, go into the world, and what can I do?
Yeah.
What can I contribute
Yeah.
to the society?
But you bring me to the experiential learning and mentorship, the community, the environment that we find ourselves in, and not just formal education when it comes to entrepreneurship. Because as Her Excellency Dudu is saying, if you do not have the endorsement or the support from those closest to you, you may abandon what essentially could be an excellent idea.
It is a reality. And I think for most SMMEs, as they're starting their business and it's at that embryonic stage where they're trying to get the business up and running, and maybe they can't feed themselves, maybe they don't have the funds to socialize and so on. And you actually get some family members saying, go look for a job. Because their mindset is about getting a job, having a salary, and so you can take care of yourself. It's not that whole thing of creating your own employment and funding. And so you find that sometimes being an entrepreneur can be a very lonely journey, especially at that beginning stage, because when business is not doing great and you don't have much money, you're actually ashamed to even tell people that you can't pay this bill or you can't do that. And so you become slightly insular. And as Her Excellency Dudu has said, having a framework that actually says from primary school to university and post, this is what the country is going to commit to in terms of developing and harnessing entrepreneurial skills. You are saying something that my husband and I have been trying to get out there, because that framework, it doesn't exist. There's too much fragmentation in this country. A lot of money, a lot of incubation programs, a lot of mentoring programs, but it's so fragmented because there is no clear framework for that. And I think when that happens, we are going to have incredible success stories coming out of this country and the continent.
We are talking about SMMEs and how these are key drivers in unlocking the economy in the African continent. Our esteemed panelists were just talking about challenges and opportunities that we can explore, but most importantly, the character of what a business person ought to be. And we'll cite biblical examples of men and women of God that we can learn from. I'll start with you, Kgosi, in the sense that when you see in the biblical example, it was really not people that were extraordinary, that stood out in the crowd, weren't necessarily the most articulate as well, but these were people that had the belief and just responded to God's mandate.
Yes, you can think of Paul. Paul was a tent maker, yet he was a persecutor of Christians, and he became a disciple of God, one of the greatest disciples, I believe. And in everything, he took his God-given talent and he went out there. Besides preaching the gospel, he still became a tent maker. And that for me is a good example of, from a biblical perspective, of entrepreneurship. You can combine God and your purpose in terms of your entrepreneurship to further your goal.
Yeah, but in how we portray success, it's almost very materialistic. The religion has been commercialized, that we think of the exteriors, what you have, the big house, the big car. But essentially, it's not necessarily about just your own prosperity. It's about the impact that you make to others. And it brings to mind the Proverbs 31 woman. I know it's self-serving, but nonetheless, but it is about community.
Beautiful. That's my favorite scripture. And I realized that, women can actually tap into that and see that it's not about, doing novel stuff, but it's looking at opportunities around you. build houses and all that. And the Proverbs 31 woman was doing exactly that. You see a need and you actually do something about that. In our townships, we are surrounded with so much opportunities. We can do our bakery. We can do we can sell our own eggs. All those things are our stable food, which, the Proverbs 31 does. And, there's this myth about women just doing business as a hobby. And I said, no, we do it because we see a need. And the Proverbs 31 did exactly that. And he's a juggler. You multitask. And that's exactly what we should be looking for. A wonderful, example.
Absolutely. But earlier on, I think, Your Excellency, you were talking about the mindset. For as long as you see yourself as a small business, you confine your ability to grow. Just talk us through about the importance of changing
Look, for me,
your perspective.
The scripture that actually speaks to that is Romans 5:2, which says we must be transformed by the renewal of our minds. Okay. And that is about really allowing yourself to go into that place where you say, okay, who am I in this business? And just to share, we run a kingdom business, or we're striving towards a kingdom business, which means that even our staff are part of our household. And so we look at their needs. If we can't pay bills, they can't pay bills. And so when money comes in, we take care of their needs first and foremost, and we sit and we say, okay, whatever's left for us, then fine. But it's the kingdom principle. We don't have to preach scripture and verse, but we apply the kingdom principles in our business. And so one of the things that we've even done is that we've established a workers' trust for our employees so that they share in the profits of the business. We're very transparent with them. And that's how we are trying to inculcate the thing of running a profitable business, because the Bible does say that we should profit from our efforts. So we know that as business people in the kingdom, we are going to profit and we should profit. But in profiting, it should not just be for myself and my husband at the end of the day to say, oh, haven't we done well? But for the entire staff to also say, wow, what a company, what we have achieved together. And those are some of the things that we are doing. So even for our staff, it's about changing their mindset, that they're not just employees, they are creating this business with us for the future, for all of us. And that's the way we look at it.
Yeah. Madam Dudu.
Yes, I want to add also that from the biblical perspective, if you look at the time that Jesus met Peter, he was at the place of his business. Even though at that point he was giving up on the business. But it was the tool he was using for his business that he gave Jesus. And that brought about a breakthrough in his business. And so looking at it in that light, when we use the talents, the skills that we have for the kingdom, we're not going to be at a loss.
I'm going to cast the net wide now and open the floor for questions. And we'll start with Madame Tsepiso, and followed by Her Excellency Puleng, and Zitobe in that order, and Her Excellency Jane. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. I know people who are employed currently, and they will say, you know what, I want to have my own business, but I'm waiting for 6 months so that at least I can have money to cover me for 6 months while I'm still, if I go into my business. And I want to ask if that is enterprising. The second one is, what I also realize is that not all of us, business people, are entrepreneurs. I have been in business for more than 15 years, and I realized over time that I'm not an entrepreneur. I am a business owner or self-employed. And within self-employed, there are many people like promoters, entrepreneurs who are risk takers and who are always thinking and seeing opportunity to make money and to sell and to really invent and innovate. I'm not that, but I'm in my own business, but I'm not that as enterprising. So can you clarify that? Thank you so much.
Wow, thank you very much for this opportunity to engage on entrepreneurship, which will definitely solve our social ills. My question is centered around partnerships. Because indeed, you might have the passion, but to succeed in business, you need those business support skills and services that you can draw from others. But unfortunately, I have seen most small businesses crashing because of partnerships that don't really work. So how can one strike partnerships that work in business?
Thank you, Excellency. And Her Excellency Zitobe, just behind, oh, sorry, Madam Jane. We'll go with you.
Yeah, thank you, Your Excellency. My own is just an input. Like Her Excellency from Gombe said, the son said education is plan B. I want to tell you that also, you can start any kind of business, no matter any amount you have from anywhere. I just started from the dresses I wear. People say, I like what you wear, I like what you wear. I'm not a fashion designer. I read psychology, but I never used it for one day to make money. But the fashion designing had given me money, taking me to all over for fashion exhibition and things like that. And that is how I survived till today. So I just started from what I wear. People say I liked it. And from there, I just bought one machine, put in the house, employed a tailor. And the tailor started. And friend would say, who made your dress? I said, my tailor. I said, what's your tailor? I said, my tailor. He was making just personally for me to wear. So from there, they said, can he make for us? I started charging money. And that was how I went into Jennifer Moore Fashions Limited today. From there to Jennifer Moore Catering Services. From the food also I cook, people say, I like the food. I said, can you cook for us when we have parties? I said, I don't mind. And that is how I started. So you can start from indoors. The things you do, your passion, what you like doing well can turn into your business. And like I tell you, anything somebody wants to do, where you have passion, go for your passion. Forget about whatever you've read. Like I said, psychology never paid me, but fashion design and catering is what has kept me on till tomorrow, and I'm still a fashion designer.
Wow, we appreciate it. Thank you, Your Excellency. For me, can I have your tailor, please? You can keep your psychology degree. Your Excellency Zitobe.
Thank you, Excellency and panelists. I'm Mama Africa. I'm passionate with lands. I'm in a small-scale manners. I'm training teens and super kids. I have started 2 weeks back. So how can I buy in all countries the lands? Thank you.
The lens.
Lands or lands, yes, I mean land.
Okay, Your Excellency. We'll get our panelists to respond. We literally have a minute. I will just start to my extreme right. In terms of the questions that have been raised, number one, whether, 1 foot in, 1 foot out, and the partnerships, and also just doing what you inherently do naturally and making money out of that.
Okay, the 1 foot in, 1 foot out approach, when you're starting off, I think it's a prudent way to start off, because what you don't want is to set yourself up for failure from a financial perspective. Right? As long as you put timelines to say, at this time, this is where I want to be from an exit plan perspective. And that's how I see it. Partnerships, I agree with Her Excellency. Partnerships in entrepreneurs is a big killer, right? You need to associate yourselves with people that share the same passion and the goal that you have, right? And with that as well, I would go further and say, find a mentor that will help you to grow in all aspects of your business. Doing what you love, as I said beginning, for me, SMME entrepreneurship is about literally going after what your heart lies in. Fighting, driving to get that passion inside of you and make money off it. Literally, for me, that's what entrepreneurship is all about.
We open the floor to a couple of questions, which we'll now attempt to respond to with our esteemed panelists. And we'll just start firstly with the one about waiting for the perfect moment. When do you know you're ready? Are you safe enough to let go of your safety net, which is the job? Let's just start there, Your Excellency Millie.
There are a number of factors that may determine your readiness. It may sometimes be extreme unhappiness in the work that you're doing. You may be working and helping somebody else to fulfill their vision, and you have this emptiness in you that says, I have a vision, I have something that I want to do, but I'm not doing it. And when that becomes so intense, you know it's time to move. Other factors may be that, yes, you have planned, you've looked at all the things that you need. Do you have the requisite knowledge? How are you building up your knowledge in around the business? You may have the skill, the talent, but do you know how to, for example, do your books and a whole host of things? So you might plan to educate yourself and give yourself a time frame. But I want to add that no matter how much planning you do, you also don't know what God has purposed for you. And when I planned my exit, I sat with my husband. He was going to stay in employment, and I was going to start the business, so that there was a buffer. And 2 months into starting my business, he lost his job. And so now we'd gone from 2 salaries to none. But the passion was there, the vision was there, and we've been nurturing that vision now for the past 5 years. So sometimes you can plan, but also know that the good Lord knows the plans He has for you.
Amen.
And it might just be to push you out of your comfort zone so that you can actually actualize and birth that which you have been keeping in your heart that you want to do.
Yeah, because when do you realize and do great exploits if you confined to a work environment? And I just want to go back to the difference between a business owner and an entrepreneur. Why do we still ponder with this kind of question, whether it's nurture or nature, that kind of thing?
The lady said she's a business person, but she's not an entrepreneur or something like that. I believe there are 2 types. You have self-employed people who are like your doctors, consultants and so on, and they're not necessarily growing a business to the point of employing 10 or 15 people and so on. That to me is a lifestyle entrepreneur. And then you have what I call the growth entrepreneur, the person who actually says, I'm going to birth something, I'm going to nurture it, I'm going to make it work, and I'm going to employ people and grow it even outside of my country. And that is, but they're still both entrepreneurs. They're just looking at it from different perspectives. And it's about what works for you. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, it doesn't help that you have the 4 quadrants and all sorts of other business literature that tells you where you ought to be in a given space in your life. But let's look at the reconfiguring the education system and introducing a spiritual knowledge, especially if it's no longer a government policy, as we see in South Africa. You have to accommodate other cultures. God forbid that you might offend the Hindus. So Christianity, or assembly and prayer is no longer encouraged in schools.
Okay, I'll take that. I think God has given us this wonderful space where we are able to say, you don't do it the way people are seeing it. For an example, I'm doing, discipleship, marketplace discipleship. And for me, there is one part that people are ignoring, where you just make Christ known where you are. And that they only realize I've been at Verts for 16 years and I've been doing exactly that. So last Friday when I resigned, I said, thank you very much for incubating me. I'm now leaving to do what I actually love doing. And for me, that it goes to exactly what you're saying, to say, something it just pushes you. Experiencing God makes you to get things pushing you so that you are able to actualize yourself and see the things that He's giving you and do what you are passionate about. I'm passionate about social entrepreneurship. I want to see people being empowered. I want to see, but that doesn't involve money. So you just have to trust Him. And now that has actually helped most of my employees at Verts to say, how did you do it? And I said, I just let Him work in my life. And I'm going out there, I don't even have a job. So I've got 3 days now of being unemployed, and I'm enjoying it. Because here am I sharing exactly what God wants me to do and empowering people and changing lives. And it doesn't need money to do that. So yes, we look at spaces where you are, use and just make Him known where you are. And that we can actually do it slowly as we actually capture our audience where you are. Where most of my at the time in my office, they were laughing because I was like a counselor, and everybody who needs something to talk about, they'll come to me. But my mandate there was to say, I'm going there to make him known while I'm doing my job with excellency and integrity. That's the only way we can actually do within the system where we are.
Yes. Oh, that's wonderful, Your Excellency. And I think for me, it's in that belief and surrender. When you say, God, I don't have a plan B. You know, maybe in the physical, I'm lucky enough to have parents who can pay for my future education. But quite frankly, you're the only insurance I have. You're the only light and guidance that I have, even if it's difficult with the lady that said, Beth, about being a musician and not having the opportunity. So how do we channel that energy at all times to know that ultimately God's plans are the only ones that matter?
I think in everything that we do, we must remember that it's not for our glory that we do it. It's for God's glory.
Amen.
No matter how hard it is to attain certain things, God will always make a way where there seemed to be no way. And to our sister that who said that, I think one concept that comes in a country like South Africa where music is not believed in, social entrepreneurship, this is where it comes in. You know, you do something that you love, but at the same time, something from it will birth that will sustain you going forward. And that you need to keep in mind. Don't lose that dream.
And I also want to add that the Bible says there's a spirit in man, and it's the inspiration of the Almighty that gives that spirit understanding. The Spirit of God in us will make us understand when it is time, even if it's not retirement time. It happened to me. I was working, and it was going very well with me, and I just felt it is time.
And you knew, was it a physical presence? Was it an
wasn't
emotion?
physical.
Was it, what was
it's
it?
not emotional. It's not physical. It's from my spirit that I knew. It's just this conviction that you just know. I can't explain it beyond that. You just know it is time. You just know it is this thing. You just know it is this direction. And when it comes, when that conviction comes, nothing can make you think otherwise. You're just so convinced. You're ready to go any length because of that conviction.
Yeah.
Because there's that spirit. And the same Bible tells us in Isaiah that our teachers shall not be removed, but we will hear a voice telling us, this is the way, walk in it. So as long as you're with the Spirit of God, your teacher has not been removed. He will give you the direction. He will tell you the how. He will tell you the when. He will tell you the where. So it's just to remain connected to God at all times. I believe that is the key. And again, God doesn't leave himself without a witness. My husband was led to quit his job, and he resigned. And I said, I'm having a lead-in. He said, wait, hold on. I don't have a job. You cannot also have a job. We have kids. But then the conviction was so strong. And so I resigned. And I said, I've resigned. And he said, okay, that's fine. And honestly, it was when I resigned that now doors were opening for I was doing consultancies. They were not coming before then. But when I let go of what I thought was my security, and I said, God, you are my security. Now he opened doors. I was having consultancies that were paying me so much more than what my paid employment was doing. Sometimes we have to just be like that Abraham and take that step of faith and leave what we know to the unknown. It is when we get to that unknown that a new horizon is opened up for us, and we begin to see things and people, connections that will take us to our real destinies.
Yeah. And once we get there to the promised land, to still remember God, because there is a tendency of once you're okay, you now tend to rely on your own wisdom and knowledge. So in the hardships is to stay resilient and steadfast in prayer.
Yes.
Just your final comments, Your Excellency.
Okay. As you were talking, one of the things that I was thinking of is that a lot of the times people want to do things, but there's so much fear of failing. And so they actually stop themselves. Do yourself a favor. There's a book called Failing Forward by John Maxwell. It's an excellent book. It has helped me with my children. And I believe that we need to teach our children that failure is not the end. A few weeks ago, I was called into school because my talented soccer player is not doing so well, and he's in his matric year. And the teachers, 4 of them, were saying, okay, so let him do matric in 2 years. I said, no, he's going to do it this year. Oh, but madam, he may fail. I said, let him fail. He'll learn from it. And I think they were flabbergasted because they were not expecting me to say that. But sometimes you need that in order to be able, because when you fall, you don't stay down. You pick yourself up. you dust yourself off, and you go on again. So failure is just the same. It's how you define it. And I think that fear of not being able to make it, not being able to do it, you know what? We all face it all the time. But it's about also the faith that we have and knowing that this business, because we have said our business belongs to God. And if God is the CEO of our business, how can it fail?
Amen. And that's exactly what Global Business Roundtable is all about. Thank you so much, Your Excellency, and to our panelists for their contribution and insight. I hope you are equally as inspired and motivated to go out there and walk in victory and trust God in all that you do, to seek His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added to you. You're watching A New Thing here on your favorite channel, proudly brought to you by Global Business Roundtable. And our website is globalbusinessroundtable.com. And for any of your comments, you can go to comments@anewthing.tv. Comments@anewthing.tv. Until we meet again, be abundantly blessed. Cheers for now.